Manchester United, there's a number of ways, Dan, to look at statistics. It's 2 very, very mediocre performances at home or 1 defeat in 8. Depends which way you look at it. But I guess that defeat to Everton and the meek draw against West Ham United is what's going to live in the fans' memories more than anything. But this lurch from they've turned a corner to its crisis and nothing in between, it simply can't be sustained, can it?
Well, it did feel a few weeks ago like United had turned a corner and they suddenly looked like a competent side. And I was like, oh, wow, what's going on here? This is the first time in years we've had to worry about Man U. But yeah, they've had a couple of dreadful results. I mean, the Everton game, how long did they play that against 10 men? The vast majority. And then dropping points at home to West Ham like that, you know, a pretty poor West Ham team, was another really bad result. So, you know, the mood is glum again. I think the pressure is back on Amorim. You know, this is nothing new. We've kind of been in this cycle for a while. I think they look like a decent team when they've got, you know, their full side out there. As soon as they get a couple of injuries, and you know, Cunha was out of the team recently, wasn't he? Sesko's been out of the team, and then suddenly they were playing Xerxes through the middle again, and they didn't look like they had much bite. So I think they remain a kind of deeply flawed side. Questions remain about Amorim, about his tactics, about his system, about his approach. And, you know, I can't really see, you know, much more than them sort of pushing toward the bottom end of the European places, to be honest, as it stands.
And they need to be fine with that, by the way. Like, I think the fact that the expectations at United are so low, I think weirdly it helps them. You see how compressed the middle of the table is. A couple of wins, you know, suddenly you're challenging for top 5 or 6. And I think for United at this point in time, they have to be okay with a draw against West Ham. They have to be kind of okay with an inconsistency, because that is currently what their level is at. I think the problem is, for so many years, that they've had this, I think, exalted level of expectation that was beyond anything they were producing on the pitch. You know, like what you said about you know, this can't be sustained, can it? And, you know, in the words of the great Mick McCarthy, it can.
But yeah, they have bought 3 £65 million or €65 million forwards, and you know they've had a manager there for what, over a year now. So you would expect a degree of improvement and consistency. I suppose they've had that, but
yeah, and you know, top 6, top 7 probably is a level of improvement. You know, certainly if you match that with a cup run. You know, they were so poor last season, and we all, like, none of us were in any illusions at the surgery that was required.
James, Dan mentioned it there, questions about his formation, question about his tactics, question about his results, but also questions about his use and maybe non-use of Kobbie Mainoo. Now, in his news conference on Friday, did we see the strain starting to show? Because he was biting back at journalists who were asking him about Kobbie Mainoo. Andy Dunn's actually written his column in the Sunday Mirror, especially about his non-selection of the England international. He says, manager watches player in training, manager doesn't think player is good enough to start for the first team, manager puts him on the bench, end of story. Now, it would be quite straightforward if the team that the manager does select was pulling up trees on a regular basis. Instead, Manchester United are simply nondescript at the moment. There's one thing being questioned about his formation, and the fans will continue to back Ruben Amorim, because Manchester United fans tend to do that, and they back their manager. Is this an argument maybe he shouldn't be taking on because of the love that the fans have for a player like Mainoo?
Well, yes, in the sense that he's also framed it as, in that press conference, he was sort of suggesting that journalists are calling for Kobbie Mainoo to play because he played well for England last summer and 2 + 2 = 4. I'm not sure that's the reasoning behind it. I think that what Ruben Amorim has done with this system and being so you know, wedded to it, is that he's created an argument where it's Bruno Fernandes or Kobbie Mainoo. I think we all agree that Mainoo and Fernandes in central midfield would be too open. Okay, maybe against the worst teams in the league, when you'd expect United to maybe have 60-65% of the ball at home, you could get away with it. But United aren't really that kind of cohesive unit that could take that kind of gamble in the central area of the pitch. So because Amorim has set up his team in this way, and they bought these 3 forwards, and he doesn't seem to think Fernandes can play there. He wants Fernandes to play deeper in central midfield. It's become a straight choice between the captain, the best player of the last few years, the one guy that United look to for a bit of creativity, versus Kobbie Mainoo. that's why Kobbie Mainoo is losing that argument, and it's been framed that way because of how Amorim has set up his team. And the longer that his team is bereft of any consistency and creativity and that bit of spark that Kobbie Mainoo can give you, the more it starts to reflect really badly on Ruben Amorim.
But picking Mainoo will almost do him a favour with the fans, though, wouldn't it? I mean, it would raise
he doesn't fit the system.
atmosphere inside Old Trafford, surely.
He doesn't fit the system. I mean, that's no slight on Kobbie Mainoo. If you look at the profile of midfielder that United have been trying to buy in the market, somebody like Baleba at Brighton, it's a completely different profile. The way that system works, you need those two central midfielders, those two pivots, to be incredibly physical, to be covering a lot of ground, to be running all over the pitch, tackling, and that is not Mainoo's game. Mainoo is a combination player. He's best in a three-man midfield where he can combine with other players, he can get neat little interchanges, and that is not the system that United have. Probably, if Amorim is not going to go, and there's so no signs of compromising on his system, Mainoo probably does have to go, and he'll look at the example of Scott McTominay, he'll look at the example of Marcus Rashford as players who have left Manchester United and flourished as a result.
OK, Wolves against Manchester United, remember, is the Monday night football. You get the impression it's one Manchester United and Amorim dare not lose.